Hey! What's up? Yeah, it was a very weird Christmas. So today, guys, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be ranking every vaulted weapon in Fortnite from worst to best. Just a few stipulations that we're going to include on this video is the first is we're going to be looking at the best version of every weapon. It's very common for vaulted weapons to see multiple changes before they were finally taken out. So we'll look at just to make it an even playing field, we'll look at the best version. And secondly, just to again, kind of balance the playing field, what we'll be doing is comparing every weapon in today's terms. And that's really just because the skill gap has increased so much over the last year. I thought it was the only way to fairly go over this video. Now, before we do get into it, if you guys are new to the channel, don't subscribe yet. Watch all the way through, and then you can make a decision whether you like me or not. Anyways, let's do this. All right, so coming in at our number 16 spot, the lowest rank weapon on this list, this is going to be the original submachine gun. This really truly was, and I think forever will be, the epitome of bad weapons. The original submachine gun is much different from the one we know today, being both different in aesthetics and much worse as far as stats go. Now, I believe originally the common submachine gun did something like 11 damage. It was ridiculous, and that was eventually buffed up to 14, which is not so bad. But in terms of if you think SMGs today, that's obviously not so good. Combine that with just bad accuracy and really just many better options, it really just would not do well in today's Fortnite setting. Moving on to number 15, I'm gonna give this one up to the crossbow. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there that will argue that the crossbow is not that bad of a weapon. Dude, you just gotta be a sniper, man. But no. Okay, sure, yeah, if you're a god with the crossbow, it's not a bad weapon. But if you're a god with a crossbow, then you're going to be a god with a sniper, and you're going to use the sniper. The crossbow had unlimited ammo and was silenced, so that was a very nice feature of it. But at the end of the day, I just really don't think anyone used this weapon seriously. Now, it was kind of cool when it came back in Halloween as a husk killer or whatever, but at the end of the day, really bad weapon. Now at number 14, I think this might trigger a few people. This is going to be the revolver. Okay, so listen. The original revolver was not a good weapon, and do not let anyone tell you any different. It's kind of like Dusty Divot. The only reason people like it is because of nostalgia. Now the thing I will say with this gun, and I think part of the reason why it just felt so hard to use, was if you landed a headshot, it did over 100 damage. That was great. But most of the time that this weapon existed was before first shot accuracy, and more importantly, before the damage fall off. Now, yeah, in a world where there was no damage fall off, I would say this weapon was better, but in today's standards, and actually once that got introduced, it was really quite bad. Combined with the fact that nowadays you have the deagle and the scoped pistol, I just think that this weapon would just not do well in the game. That being said, I really would like an updated version of this weapon to come back in the white, blue, and green rarities. Now, moving on to our number 13 spot, this is going to be the burst. Common, uncommon, and rare burst. Now, I could sit here and explain why this gun is bad, but Tfue did a really good job of it, so I'm gonna let him take it over.
Battle Royales and 3-round burst weapons don't mix at all. So in Battle Royale games, you get in all types of different engagements. When you're playing on a map so big, but with POIs, you know, a point of interest in some certain locations, you run into close range combat. So you find yourself in close range combat a lot, but you also find yourself in long range combat a lot. So you have this burst in the game, a gun that is terrible at close range combat and long range combat. What is the gun actually good for? Say mid range combat, maybe, and I might agree with you, but there's better alternatives in the game.
Okay, so coming in at number 12, this is going to be the 6-shooter. Now, a lot of people really rip on the 6-shooter, and I don't think that's fair. The same people that say the revolver is amazing will say that the 6-shooter is bad. The thing with the 6-shooter is it was a dual-use weapon, and I think that made it actually fairly useful. Like, if you pick this thing up at the start of a game, you could land some long shots, and if someone comes close to you, if you're good, you could also kill them at that range. And that's my primary reason why I think that this weapon is underrated, or was. It certainly wasn't the best weapon, but it was good at the start of games, and yeah. Moving on to our number 11 spot, this is the semi-auto sniper. So I'll be completely honest, I actually really did kind of like the semi-auto. I think it was especially a good sniper weapon for less experienced players. But the reason that it's ranking so low is really just the fact that there's no scenario where I would use a semi over a bolt or a heavy, or even a hunting rifle. My feeling with the semi is just that there's so many better options, and if you put a sniper into the hands of a really experienced player, they'll definitely do best with something like a bolt, hunting rifle, or heavy. Now, topping off our number 10 spot, these are going to be clingers. Now, apart from what the week 6 challenge says, clingers have been removed from the game, and it's something that I actually really do miss. Clingers were a nice early game weapon to just, launch into a room and hope to kill somebody, and honestly, I definitely preferred them over grenades. While dynamite is kind of cool and it does serve its own purpose, honestly, I really just do miss these. Sticking people with them was fun, and actually not that difficult if you were a good aim, and yeah, really not that bad. At number 9, this is going to be remote explosives. So originally these were really bad, but halfway through their existence, they got a huge update to the point where basically any structure whatsoever in its vicinity would just completely be decimated. I swear this thing had like the radius of a boombox, but it was obviously just, a remote, place it down and blow it up when you want. While not as powerful as dynamite or a full usage of a boombox, I do think that these things were pretty OP. These were one of the big things that over the summer was really countering building, and while I honestly I don't miss them, I guess the thing is because there's so much stuff that counters building now, like again, boomboxes and dynamite, they wouldn't really serve much of a purpose. That being said though, really good, and I did like these things a lot. Moving on to our number 8 spot, this is going to be the tactical SMG. So when this first got introduced in September of 2017, this was not a very good weapon and really not much better than the normal submachine gun, but as time went on, this was a weapon that saw major improvements. Basically what happened to this weapon is it just turned into the submachine gun that we know, but it was its own unique weapon. And really at the peak, just before I think season 5 started, when we started seeing that SMG meta going on, we really saw a good weapon. It was great to combo this weapon with a pump like you do now with the normal SMG or the compact. And on top of that, the purple version did 20 damage a shot and had a higher damage per second than the compact SMG. A little bit less accurate, had a little bit less ammo, but overall a really good gun. Also, just as a side note, it was awesome seeing this weapon back in Unvaulted. Now, though, moving on to number 7, and this is going to be the suppressed SMG. I won't linger on this one too long, but basically, these weapons were very similar, the tactical and the suppressed. The reason that I think the suppressed was better is because it shot slower, it rewarded accuracy. It did more damage, shot slower, and for that reason, if you were a more accurate shot, you would be rewarded. I feel the same way about the suppressed as I do with the tac, but I just think it was a slightly better gun. Not to mention suppressed weapons are nice. Okay, so moving on to our number 6 spot, this is going to be the light machine gun. And this is really where we're starting to get into overpowered weapons. This weapon was basically the child from hell of the minigun and drum gun, even though the drum gun came after the LMG. I guess a better comparison would be minigun and an AR. 100 shots in a clip led basically like you could just spam forever, and it did 25 to 26 damage a shot. 4 shots to kill, and basically an unlimited amount of shots meant this was a very spammy and easy to use weapon. This is a weapon that I'm really glad got taken out of the game. Now, moving on to our number 5 spot, this is going to be the Zapotron. And this might come as a shock, as I think a lot of people often look at the Zapotron as this holy weapon that it was so overpowered they had to take it out in 6 hours, and it's got this like myth behind it. And I really don't think that it lives up to the hype. That is to say, I don't think it would live up to the hype if they brought it back. I mean, there's a reason they didn't bring it back in the Unvaulted mode. The Zapotron just was a weird weapon. So first of all, let's look at this weapon. It did 150 damage, and it was kind of like this big charged up shot that when released would kind of go out like a sniper. And that's what I'm getting to. There's a sniper in the game that already does 150 damage. So why would we assume that the Zapotron would be any better than the heavy? In fact, I would argue that this would actually be much worse than the heavy. Because the thing with the Zapotron is you could only get it out of supply drops, and therefore could only get the ammo of it out of supply drops. So it was a weapon that was very limited in use. So while I think it definitely would still be a good weapon, I don't think it would be the absolute OP Thanos mode that everyone kind of claims it to be. Also, just as a fun little side note, not only was it a big charge and single shot weapon, actually it also shot in little bursts, but there's no existing gameplay of that, so yeah. Now, moving on to our number 4 spot, this is going to be guided missiles. Okay, so in a 1v1, guided missiles were not very overpowered. Basically, all you had to do in a 1v1 situation is as the rocket's coming at you, you turtle up, and then once it breaks your walls, run towards them, repeat that process until you're close enough to shotgun them in the face. But once you start going into duo situations, squad situations, where it's like a 3v4, a 1v2, that's where this weapon became just not fun to play against. In a 1v2 situation, it's kind of the same as like a minigun. Let's say you're fighting one of the teammates, and then you've just got rockets coming in on you as you're trying to kill that person. Made for a very frustrating and challenging time. Now, once it came back, it really wasn't that good, but the original one, it had a much better turn radius, it went for longer, and it did 100 damage. So really OP weapon, and also just wasn't really fun to use. Coming in number 3, this is going to be the double barrel shotgun. This, I gotta say, this is a weapon that I actually do miss. While the guided missile was good, I think it was good in situations. The thing with the double barrel is it was more of a skilled weapon. Now, and I guess I use the term skilled loosely. Now, if you were a good player and you could actively put yourself in situations where you're about 2 inches from the other player, you would devastate individuals with this. 150 damage a shot, it was just all over. But the subsequent problem with a weapon like this is not only could a skilled player that's really good at getting close to the enemy player do that, if you're just a noob and you accidentally stumble into someone, the same thing would happen. So it was a weapon that could be used by good players, but also new players. And I guess that actually made it like kind of a fun weapon for everybody. But at the end of the day, it did seem pretty broken. Still though, nothing better than just dead. Like, love that. Okay, now moving on to our number 2 spot. This is going to be what I consider to be the most overpowered gun to ever grace Fortnite, and this is the drum gun. So while the drum gun just underperformed as far as having the highest damage per second of any gun, it doesn't matter because this thing just shredded. Now, as this thing slowly got nerfed, it started having more spread, less range, but the original drum gun was ridiculous. So first of all, 50 rounds in the magazine. That was a lot. So while not quite as ridiculous as an LMG, 50 is really enough to get past any turtling and just shred someone. On top of that, it had the mobility of any other normal weapon, so you weren't slowed down like you were with an LMG. And correct me on that if I'm wrong, but I do believe the LMG slowed you down at least a little tiny bit. Not as much as the minigun, but I think it did a little. But anyways, last but not least, it also had really good range. When this weapon was originally released, people were just kind of starting to say, like, there's no point of running an AR because this weapon is almost to the range of that, and you can, cover that distance pretty quickly and then just destroy. Really just felt overpowered and comes in at number 2. Now, quick honorable mention that I didn't really want to get into because it just felt too complicated. This is going to be the original traps, the wall dynamo and ceiling trap. These were, basically just the exact same as any trap today. They just made noise. The fact that you could hear them at the time made them useless because no one knew how to effectively use traps. But nowadays, it's basically just a trap. And I had a really hard time thinking about where a trap would land that does 100 damage on this list. So let me know what you think in the comment section down below about where the wall dynamo and ceiling trap would place nowadays. Anyways, though, coming in at the number 1 spot, I think this is something you guys can all predict. This is the... What is it called? Yes, the Infinity Blade. Is it really called the Infinity Blade? It's kind of like the Infinity Stones. Seems kind of similar to Thanos. It is actually Infinity... Yeah, okay, I'm stupid. The Infinity Blade gave you 400 health, basically unlimited mats, and, I don't think I need to go too in-depth on this. We all know not long ago how ridiculous this was. Basically, when you got this thing in a solo game, it was a free win. My highest skill solo game, I think it was something like 13 or 14, came from the Infinity Blade. I'm not proud of it. It just felt so overpowered You know, you have 400 health. Enemies just can't do anything against that. And you could still build. It was a ridiculous weapon. There's never been anything so overpowered. Maybe not even Thanos, to be completely honest. And it comes in at the #1 spot. Anyways, though, guys, thank you very much for making it all the way through on this one. Again, actually, now, if you're new and you did enjoy and you're still here, maybe earn that subscribe. If you are here regardless and you're maybe already subscribed, leave a like. Go follow me on Twitter, please. That'd be great. I sometimes tweet stupid or mostly stupid stuff, but yeah. And yeah, I'll see you guys later. Bye.